Day 12, week 3 of the Oscar Pistorius trial, and it began with a lot of grumpy people today, particularly journalists. Our coffee privileges were revoked. Don't ever tamper with the journalists and their coffee. We used to be allowed to take our coffee into the courtroom. No longer. Somebody spilt theirs, spoilt it for everybody. So you had a lot of caffeine withdrawal symptoms in court today. That coupled with the fact that court was over an hour late today because the crime scene photographer, Warrant Officer van Staden, was given homework overnight. He was asked by the defense to bring the original master file of photographs to the courtroom, which were locked up in his cupboard in his office. I'm not sure if he was working on civil servant time, which meant that he could only fetch that in working hours, but he arrived late, flushed and hot and bothered, with the file clasped under his arm. Roux then continued his cross-examination, and it was a very vigorous one.
That morning when you did the PR test, that you only took 4 photos of Mr.
U sê nou op die oggend toe die PR-toets uitgedien het, het u net 4 foto's van meneer Pistorius geneem.
Correct, eerlijk. I'm instructed that you took a large number of photos.
Meneer Pistorius het procureer meneer Roux gesê dat meneer klomp foto's van hom geneem het, die betrokke oggend.
And not only 4.
Nie slechts 4 nie, sommer 'n hele klomp.
Nee, eerlijk.
The point that Roux was trying to make is that a number of objects were tampered with on the crime scene, not deliberately or maliciously, but the photographer would move something to take a better photograph and not document the fact. And Roux's point is that, fine, take the original crime scene photograph, then if you move something around, you need to reflect that in the description of the photograph. I moved the towel so that I could take a better picture of the gun, or whatever the case may be. But perhaps the most crucial part of Roux's cross-examination focused on the photographs of the cricket bat and the door. We had a number of photographs, and one of the photographs, which showed the cricket bat striking the door at a very high point, was removed from the file and not put in the final court album. Roux's point was this, that effectively what was happening is that they were removing evidence which could essentially prove their case, and that was that Oscar Pistorius put on his prosthetics after shooting Reeva Steenkamp. He used his prosthetics to bash down the door. The state's case has always been that Pistorius was not on his prosthetics, and so Roux's basically trying to say that the state is tailoring its evidence to suit its particular version of events. So up in the stand we had Captain Christian Mangena, who is the ballistics expert, 20 years experience in the police force, and he began giving evidence about the bullet holes. He said he received the door, he marked the bullet holes, A, B, C and D, 4 of them. One of the bullets ricocheted and hit a wall, and he made those marks on the front and the back of the door. He then went to the crime scene, put the door back on its hinges and continued to reconstruct the scene. We'll hear more from him tomorrow, and I guess the thrust and gist of his evidence will be made tomorrow. It felt a little bit like Nell was holding back the really important part of his evidence. He did, however, get around to describing some of the injuries that Reeva Steenkamp would have sustained to her skull, to her arm and to her hip as a result of those bullets going through that toilet door. Reeva Steenkamp's mother June was in court for much of the day once again today, and as the captain was detailing these injuries, she battled a little bit. The ANC Women's League protective around her, putting arms around her shoulder. To the left of her, Oscar Pistorius again sat with his head in his hands as those injuries were detailed. An interesting moment at the beginning of court today, as Uncle Arnold, Oscar Pistorius' uncle, went over to chat to Reeva Steenkamp's mother June. She seemed receptive. She had a conversation. Obviously we weren't privy to that, but we've known for a long time. She said she's wanted to go to court and look Oscar Pistorius in the eye and determine for herself what happened. As I said, back in court tomorrow, the ballistics expert, Captain Mangena.
Check it out.